You are listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So, if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or his Substack. Or simply buy him a coffee with a one-off donation, links to which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, we are going to have a blast. So listen, welcome to the Doc Malik Show. Listen, I love your Instagram feed, and I'm going to put it up in a second, and it'll be on the show notes so everybody can find it. But listen, Buster, yeah, this is your first ever podcast. I'm really pleased to pop your cherry. How does it feel?
Exciting. Looking forward to it.
So, I don't know how I stumbled across you, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Instagram has always been my first love. It was I used to be known as the London foot and ankle surgeon. I didn't like Twitter. I thought it was a bit of a toxic cesspit. And I used to just put up posts on Instagram so that I could connect with my, family of patients, so that I could stay in touch with physios and podiatrists and osteopaths, and just give people a window into my life. And I also wanted to share knowledge like about foot and ankle injuries and problems. And I just loved it because I think I love pictures. And you don't normally get the trolls that you do on Twitter. It's just a nicer place. But now I've transformed into an official, conspiracy theorist quack job. And I think somehow either you started following me or I started following you. I don't know which way around it was. Do you remember?
What I remember first is when you interviewed Dr. Seema Haltra, and he made his infamous side effects are 1 in a million. I was like, oh, and then I think I started sharing some facts, and then we got acquainted that way.
Yeah, you DM'd me, and I was like, oh, yeah. So listen, tell me, you're not a fan of vaccines, are you? Quackscenes?
No, long history there. Started off, I just intuitively just didn't like them, but I wasn't in the medical field at the time, and I did join the military when I was 17 years old in response to 9/11, and because my friends were joining. So they had vaccine requirements, and while I didn't really like it, I just assumed they knew what they were doing, and maybe they had some minimal risks, but I had to do it to keep my job. So I didn't fight it too much at the time. So I took all the vaccines the military wanted me to, and didn't really have any issue with it. Kind of where I started to get mad was they told me there were immunizations. Like, they're literally called immunizations. They use kind of the language, you can't get whatever disease you're immunized with. And then I got the mumps. So I had 3 MMR shots, and I was sailing. I was in the Navy, and I got the mumps. So I was like, everyone on this ship is immunized with the mumps. I'm immunized with the mumps. Why did I catch the mumps? And that's kind of where I started having conversations, because they quarantined, they brought all the ships back to harbor. They quarantined me. They did all the testing. They first misdiagnosed me, even though I had the big swollen glands and stuff. So I was starting to really kind of lose faith in the medical team there. But yeah, I just felt a little bit deceived that they would say it's basically 100% effective, that I'm immune, and then I got it. So I was like, what's the point of doing this if I'm still going to catch the disease anyway? Right. So that was kind of the soft introduction into it. And then the deeper I dug, the worse it got. So I asked the base surgeon, I said, well, I understand it's not 100% effective, but is it 99? Is it 98? What's your reference? And then she couldn't really direct me to anything. She just said, it doesn't work for everyone. It's rare, right? I was like, oh, okay, but it happened to me. And so how rare is it? Are we just guessing? And then I started digging for the source documents, because that's kind of my job in the military. I did communications for them. And then I was like, when I found out the package inserts and what backs this all up, it just was astounding how poor it was.
It is really bad. Do you know, I had Rosemary Marshall on my podcast. You probably don't know her, but she's a lovely Australian granny. Lovely, nice and proper. You can't get as nice and proper little granny. If you just imagine the quintessential granny, it's her, right? And she's taking part in Forest of the Fallen. So in Australia, all the vaccine injured and people who've died, they put them on placards and put them on little wee sticks and put them in beaches and parks. You walk through the Forest of the Fallen. Anyway, she goes to, she never was one for confrontation, but now she goes to a pharmacy and goes, right, can I have a shot and can I have a packet insert? And she sent me a video where the pharmacist has sent her, showed her a box of Moderna, whatever, and the packet insert is blank. It says deliberately blank.
Intentionally blank. Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
That's it, intentionally blank. What the frack does that mean?
Yeah, so my mother's a pharmacist, or she was. She retired with this whole COVID pandemic. I brought some of my concerns to her, and it kind of shocked and traumatized her because all the communication she's getting from her associations, from her colleges, are just extremely positive. Talking about herd immunity, talking to basically not even consider any, anti-vax misinformation. It's really just anything negative about the vaccine. So yes, how are you doing informed consent with a blank package insert? Because usually they have some pretty good information of what's the justification, where's the value in the product.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that package insert is called a pill. Not a pill like a tablet, but a patient information leaflet. And it's a requirement of the regulatory bodies, whether it's the MHRA or whatever in America, where you outline lots of different things like, what is this drug? What are the active ingredients? What are the full ingredients? What are the indications? What are the contraindications? What are the side effects? How to take the medication, the dosages for your age and your body weight and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the pill, to make it, goes through a very rigorous process itself. And, I've forgotten the name, regulatory affairs. So there's a department in every pharmaceutical company called regulatory affairs, where they have to make sure all the everything's up to their regulations. And then on the regulatory body side, they'll be checking this as well. They'll be checking the pills and making sure everything matches up. So I don't really understand how they managed to come up with intentionally blank. I mean, did they just get some kid off from high school who's doing a little work placement who couldn't be arsed doing the work and just typed in intentionally blank? I mean, it's kind of taking the piss. It's taking the piss.
It's a slap in the face. It's for sure. They knew it was a new platform. They knew people were going to have questions. And they basically said, we're not going to give any information even to the pharmacists, the nurses, the doctors administering it. It's just, we don't know. Just shut up. Just take it. Don't ask questions.
I was going to say, I guess they don't really need to provide that pill because and I know that everybody who took the jab gets such a rigorous informed consent process, don't they? Like, they really get detailed informed consent. So they don't really need a patient information leaflet. They're getting a fantastic consent process, aren't they?
They got it from the news, right? Yeah. The newscasters can provide informed consent, or Big Bird from Sesame Street can provide informed consent. Because it'd be assault if they didn't, right? If it was medicine they're practicing.
Yeah, like that would never happen. They would, doctors would never assault their patients and battery and assault. No, not in this lovely clown world. We don't do that kind of stuff, do we?
So that was the red flags where none of this is making sense. So what's really going on, and why are these smart, supposedly ethical people all going along with this, right? Because I was like, no one's going to go for this. There won't be any confidence. There won't be any uptake. The doctors are going to read the fine details. They're going to do their due diligence. This won't get off the ground. And then I kind of saw the crowd psychology of just how people are getting all wrapped up in the fear and the solution. And I was like, oh God, people are hypnotized.
But the thing is, yes, it's more recent with the fear and the propaganda, but the reality is you can't polish a turd, right? It's still a turd. And the thing is, I think the thing is, the only reason why they could get away with it is because of what's been happening decades earlier. They have packaged this thing called a vaccine, this product, this medical product.
Mm-hmm.
One would say it's faulty. Some would say it's actually doing its job. It doesn't matter what your opinion is, but let's just say this product, they've managed to get this product into people's psyche, the public and the medical profession, and make it into a sacred cow that cannot be questioned. So now, instead of, I think there's even a clip of some big pharma guy saying, do you know what? it's a good thing we called it a vaccine because, can you imagine us telling people we've got this new gene editing technology? Will you take this experimental gene edit? I think the uptake would have been very low. But you know what? We said it's a vaccine and everybody lined up. So it's all about that word vaccine, isn't it? Quaxine.
Absolutely. So I love word etymology, where all the things come from. I think it has this is all mind control, right? This is all smart marketing, neurolinguistic programming, creating expectations or positive associations in people's brains. So vaccine doesn't really mean anything positive to me. It comes from the root vaca, or cow, right? We're throwing back to smallpox vaccines to use pus from a cow with Jenner's smallpox vaccine. So this is nothing I consider to be positive. But the public believes it, eradicated smallpox, solved the polio epidemic, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So it's just revealing a couple 2-century kind of fraud, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's where we need to flip things on its head, where we need to turn things around. So this is our opportunity, because I think enough people are now seeing the harms and the problems and not wanting a booster. This is where we strike back.
Yeah.
So if they could use that word to have positive connotations, now we can reverse it. We can play it back on themselves. We can say, right, this is what a vaccine is. And I know some people say don't call these shots vaccines. I think we should, because actually it lays it open to now attack the whole vaccine industry, as far as I'm concerned. Do you not think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's any medical value in it. I think we need to reverse the propaganda, and from safe and effective to dangerous and useless.
Yeah, I like that one, actually.
I mean, they're calling us cows, right? It's a vaccine. It's for cows. It's pharma animals, right? It's all an inside joke. It's all a desecration. It's all an insult that they feel they can inject us like they're herd animals whenever they want. That's why it's called herd immunity.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that, actually. That's a really good point. But this is actually from one of your posts, which I found shocking. So back in June the 1st, 1984. So let's do the maths. That's what, 40 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, 40 years ago and a few days. It's written, and, what does it say? It says, the FDA believes it is in the interest of the public health to make the amendment effective as soon as possible, to make certain that questions jeopardy any possible doubts whether or not well-founded, what the hell, about the safety of the vaccine, notice the vaccine, cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine will continue to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. And you wrote a comment and you said, any possible doubts whether or not well-founded about the safety of the vaccines cannot be allowed to exist. Federal Registrar, 1984. They have always been paid liars. That's why you only hear them talk about the confidence instead of evidence, and measure success by uptake and not by patient outcomes. Can you expand on that, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever they're talking about success, like in a flu vaccine campaign or anything like that, they're just talking about uptake. They don't follow through and say, great, we got 99% of people injected. Now look how much we've decreased hospitalization with the flu. They don't do that. They don't make that step. They just care that you've taken it. They don't care if there's injuries. They don't have any positive value to show that now there's less severe flu, or they don't do that. They just say, great, uptake's high with success. So that's what I mean. You have to use a hard clinical endpoint. What's the value? It's the same thing with antibodies. I don't care if I have an antibody in my blood. I care that I don't get the measles, or I don't get something else that's on the schedule. So that's what I mean. So I'm looking at the point of, like, let's say you want to start a family, you want to want to have a quick bruise. How would you tell a family that they're what they care about, what they would value, that they'd understand?
Exactly.
So I don't think a mother would care about their antibodies unless there was a very strong correlative protection, that if you kept your measles antibodies at 120 milliliters, that you would not be able to get measles. And of course, you'd have to prove that with experiments. And when I went looking for the evidence, it was done, and it's scant. That's their language.
Scant.
There's no correlative protection for virtually any of them. Yeah, scant. Systematic review.
And the funny thing is, if you inject toxic gloop into your arm, you are going to get antibodies anyway. Can I just double check something? these antibodies, are they specific to anything? When they measure them, like, when I had a hepatitis B shot, and then they said, we're going to check your antibodies. Is it a special antibody specific to hepatitis B, or what are they actually testing? Believe it or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I won't propose to be an expert, but there are 5 different types of antibodies, right? They spell GAMED, GAMAD. So you only have 5, then you have a million different subversions of them. And not all antibodies are even positive, right? So we have IgG4 antibodies, which can be tolerizing antibodies. Some are associated with allergies like IgE. Some are associated with fighting parasites, but no, a lot of these are cross-reactive, meaning they'll refer to similar type pathogens, including self, right? That this can trigger autoimmunity, this can trigger antibody-dependent enhancement. So no, generating an antibody response is not necessarily a positive outcome.
Oh, trust me, I know right now I've got hay fever. It's killing me.
Yeah.
So yeah. I agree with the whole idea of measuring success based on antibody results and levels is ridiculous. What you want to know is, does it stop infection? Does it stop transmission? And they don't talk about that. They really don't talk about it. Look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer from the outset. I am now, and because I've just realized the whole thing is just a scam. I had the vaccines. I rolled up my arm when I was a kid and went to med school. I don't question it. I thought, why they're recommending something that's in my best interest? Why would the idea of even questioning that just didn't cross my head? These are good people. It's my university. They want us to be good doctors and they want to protect us. So I took the shots. It was only when I was a consultant and I really saw the push, like from about 2010, 2011 for the flu shot. Mm-hmm. I started thinking, what's going on here, right? Like every year they come out with a campaign. There's stands in the corridors, in the dining rooms. The nurses are trying to vaccinate every doctor, nurse, healthcare practitioner, and every patient. And I'm like, what is it actually doing? Because we still have a flu season every year. So they talk about 80% of staff being vaccinated, 90% of staff being vaccinated, and everybody still gets sick. Everybody still got the flu. I'm like, this must be the shittiest product known to man. And then the one time I got the flu shot, I was really sick. And I was like, I'd rather take my chances. I would rather take my chances with the flu than have this goddamn shot again, because it's ridiculous. But every year, Paul, the hard sell went up. Like it got, and I don't know about you, but like when I go into a shop, and some kid comes up to me and goes, can I help you? I go, no. And they go, and then they hover. And then they go, is there anything in particular you're looking for? I'm like, no, I'm just looking. Well, if you need me, I'm just here. I'm like, that's great. I've seen you. Would you like these trousers? No, I don't want those trousers. After a while, you're like, I'm leaving the shop. I do not want this bullshit.
Yeah, you're weird. You're a weirdo. I don't trust you. You give me weird vibes, right? Yeah, but the truth is, when I look at it, they have to. Because if you're going to I'm coming from evidence-based medicine, where is the initial source claim for what you're advertising, right? So let's say you do a clinical trial and your outcome is antibodies, but then I go in the news and they're talking about herd immunity and 100% protection against hospitalization. It's like, no, that wasn't the outcome of your trial. So you're making an unsubstantiated claim, right? Like you should be able to prove any of this in a court. What's your reference? And ideally multiple. And they can't do it, yet they're still making the claims. So this is fraud. This is misrepresentation. This is making claims they can't back up.
But dude, we're engaging in epic misinformation right now by doing this podcast. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, we're in the inverted reality, and that's when I kind of realized we're not even practicing medicine. So that's kind of where it gets interesting, because the doctors have to do informed consent, right? If not, they can, I'm sure you know this in the world of surgery, even if it could save their life, if they don't expressly agree to it, you can be charged with assault and get under disciplinary review, right? But we're not. These are countermeasures. So this is not a bona fide medical product. This is a military countermeasure. And trust, this is also my world. I served 16 years in the military. These are chemical, biological, radionucleological countermeasures, and that is their language and their legalese.
It is. The legalese is actually quite important. they cover everything up in their bullshit legalese, double speak, and you don't actually understand what they're talking about. It's deliberately confusing and misleading.
That's the first sign that someone's trying to deceive you, is that they want you scared and they want you confused. It's the fog of war that you can't figure out what's going on. So this is where my kind of military spider senses are going on. They're like, uh-oh, this feels like psychological warfare. I served in the military. We sign up for unlimited liability. They can order us to our death. They can make us do all kinds of scary things that can risk our life. They never tried to scare me. They never tried to say, you might die. You might never see your family again. They didn't try and get you into this state where they know you can't critically think, where you'll poorly perform, where you become hyper-suggestible and easily influenced. Because then you kind of just look up and say, what do you want me to do? You just become too malleable.
And what about your colleagues in the military? Have you heard from any of them saying, yeah, we agree with you and we question this? Or are they all like the doctors buying it all up?
Yeah, well, things have changed, right? So initially, they knew my background, right? I'm in healthcare, and they're not, most of them, and they would have respected my opinion on anything else. But no, they kind of made jokes like "I see you in the hospital" kind of thing, and then the tide changed, and I stopped talking to a lot of them over it because it was really segregating, right? So I served 16 years. I wasn't allowed to go to the Legion on Remembrance Day because of the whole Vax Pass thing. And I was like, no, line in the sand, not having it. If you people stand with this, like, we're not on the same page. Like, this is deal breaker.
Isn't it? That is so sad. That's so sad, dude.
Yeah. So I served in your military. I became a doctor, and now you're discriminating against me. I realized there was no card, there was no title. They're just, this is their agenda, and they're going to push it no matter who they steamroll.
And I keep saying this, it doesn't even make sense because apparently, vaccines were sold to me when I was a kid that, you take a vaccine and it protects you and it's like a shield. It makes you immune. So whether someone is vaccinated or not, if I've got this force field around me, it shouldn't matter. Yep. So when they said you need to get vaccinated to protect others, I'm like, what? Like, I need to take it for other people? Like, when do you take a medical product for someone else? Like, I need to take this antidepressant so that other people don't get sad or depressed. It's like, it doesn't make sense. I'm taking it for myself, not for other people. Right?
It's a pipe dream, right? Think about it. Like, you can do nothing. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to eat right. You don't have to sleep well. You can be obese and just stick this in your arm and you're good for life. And I'm not exaggerating their claims. Like, if you go to Health Canada's website and look up an ideal vaccine, the standard is 1 dose for lifelong immunity. And they'll admit some come closer to that definition than the others. But no, none come close to that. There's no, that is just 1 injection. Some of them are 5, pneumococcal and all this. It's like, and I was like, oh, there must be something different in the 4th one. No, you're just giving the same thing to your immune system that's going to learn to ignore it. It's because it doesn't work.
Wow. Oh, they're just mental. I mean, it's the childhood vaccination schedule has now also gone off the scale. I mean, it's gone off. It's gone mental. Right?
Absolutely. And there's a reason for it, right? It's a cash cow. They've realized what they can get away with murder, and that was solidified in law with the Act of 1986, National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And it's a free-for-all where they gave immunity to all future vaccines, right? So yeah, that's why it went from 5 to now over 100 shots by the time you're 18 if you take the flu shots.
It's insane. And it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. So you also did a post on your Instagram about this. Influenza vaccination requirements for healthcare personnel in US hospitals. So let's talk about mandates. What do you think about mandates?
Well, it violates informed consent. First and foremost, one, that they think they have the right to make a mandate, right? So my understanding of medicine is you have to provide informed consent. Even if there's a rare risk, you have to communicate it The whole idea is that you can say no, right? Informed refusal, unwanted medical care, right? So a mandate violates all that. You're basically saying, I'm willing to violate the Nuremberg Code to get this product into you. So there are theoretically a justification where if the Black Plague was going along and you truly had a product that would stop it or would save humanity, I do see some ethical justification for that, even if some people are injured by it, but nothing close in the real world. This is just a story. Like you said, you're protecting others, you're stopping. It's just a lie.
I don't even agree with that. I don't even agree if there is a Black Plague. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care. The reason why we have medical ethics is to protect us and the reason why we have laws and everything is to protect us at times of peril and danger. There's no point having these rules and regulations when everything is cozy. It's when the shit hits the fan, you've got these protective mechanisms. Does that make sense? That you've got bodily autonomy. You know, I believe in, like, it's all about me, right? Individualism, in the sense that I want to live in a community. I want to protect my family and then my community. But first of all, I need to take care of myself, and I have my rights. No one can tell me that I can't travel. No one can tell me what to put in my body. No one can tell me what to say, and no one can tell me what to think. These are my inalienable rights. Okay? And even if there's a bubonic plague, I don't give a shit. No one can tell me you're going to take this shot. Ain't happening. It's not happening.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think they'll lie all the time. I don't trust it at all. But I think that's kind of the point. They're not looking at your individual rights. This is literally, they're talking about the public health interest, which is really just them, right? They're saying, we're going to suppress the individual to accomplish this objective.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So, because after the research, I realized there is no medical reason for doing this. Like, I went through them all, and I'm like, I can't find anyone that I would take with informed consent. There's not even a medical justification. So why are they doing it? Like, do you know?
Why are they doing it?
Because it forces you to submit. You give up that individuality. You say, I'll let you inject this into my body. You become subservient to the state. That's what a mandate does. You're saying you don't have the right to your own body. Don't challenge us. We're the boss.
Exactly.
It gets more spiritual than that. So if you look at the people that actually make them, some of these people openly hate religion, right? So I watched Aaron's series, 9-hour deposition with Stanley Plotkins. Stanley Plotkins openly, who wrote the vaccine Bible, and they do call it that, with a forward by Bill Gates, vaccine expert Bill Gates is on the vaccine Bible forward. Yeah, it's there. So he hates religion. He admits on the stand he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in religious exemptions. So with this, they were able to shut down churches. They were able to wipe all that out. They denied almost without exception the religious accommodations, something that would be sacred, right? So if you said that's the law, like the highest law in the land here is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Well, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms didn't break out of its case and protect me when they said I couldn't do air travel or that I couldn't receive an organ transplant. It didn't do anything. It's just words on paper. So this is when you say when shit hits the fan, they've shown you they're going to pull an emergency so that they can make anything they want to do illegal.
Yeah.
They'll find a way. They'll change the language. They've now removed, in the States, they've removed informed consent from the trial procedure as long as it's perceived as minimal risk. So they use a bunch of this meaningless language, like protects. What does protect mean? What does safe and effective mean? How many injuries until something's not safe? What do you mean by effective? That it made antibodies? What do you mean? It's a meaningless phrase that people think they understand the meaning to, but they don't.
Dude, keep going. Don't stop.
It's mind games. It's psychological warfare. And people are using the same, someone's checked this, someone makes sense. It's psychology. So this is my background as well. I'm a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And people just can't say no to authority. 2/3 will go against all their values as long as someone else is in charge and will take the blame. They'll follow orders even if it results in someone else dying. Stanley Milgram, right? Have the guy in a lab coat. You have this learner. The learner makes a mistake. The trial participant is told to shock them in increasing waves. 2/3 will go until the person stops responding and is dead. The person's acting, but they don't know that. And even though you can see them go through all the psychological distress and who's going to be to blame, 2/3 will keep going. So this is a lot of people just are not strong enough to say no.
How do we fix that?
Through the same methods. It's through psychology, through education, through confidence, through knowing the stakes. Because they really decide, like...
They decide what, sorry?
They destroyed society through vaccination, in my opinion.
I think
they basically bet the whole system on it.
Yeah, why do you say they destroyed society? In what way?
Well, look at the last 4 years. They had people die alone in hospitals. They prevented people from spending Christmas together. They dehumanized anyone that would go against them. They spent $10 billion promoting vaccination. And they spent $30,000 compensating injury in the United States.
Wow. I think they've also destroyed society, because if you look at what they've done to the family unit, you know, we are harming our children. Paul, we are injecting our beautiful children, these gorgeous little babies, the moment they're born, with a hepatitis vaccine. That's normally, you know, hookers and prostitutes and sexually transmitted disease. Like, what the hell? Like, what is a baby? What is that little tiny baby? And that tiny little baby, that tiny volume of blood, is getting aluminium, formaldehyde, you know, detergent, heavy metals, and God knows what other shit, human monkey cells, dog monkey cells, kidney cells. You know, it's a witch's brew potion of garbage. If people knew fetal cell lines, and it's like, people say, oh, but it's fetal cell lines, it's an incubator. When I was speaking to Aaron Siri, he was like, no, they need freshly aborted tissue material. So I also think part of the whole abortion industry now and pushing abortions, and I don't want to get into that. Like, I'm not saying they're like, you know, there's never a reason not to have an abortion, but I think it's encouraged. And I think the explosion in abortions is our modern day equivalent of child sacrifice. We've got child sacrifice going on for the pharmaceutical and the cosmetic industry, and to make these goddamn vaccines. And I'm sorry, what happens to every society that takes part in child sacrifice? It doesn't end well. And so when you say it's breaking down our society, I'm thinking this level. I'm thinking what we're doing now is frankly disgusting and abhorrent. And where are the mum and dads now protecting their children from this evil? You know, our kids are autism, ADHD, allergies, this and that. I don't think it's unrelated.
No, it's how dark you want to get. So, and why are they doing this if they know it's causing harm, right? I think they're putting spells on us. I think it's Satanism, to be completely honest, trying to suppress the individual. They're playing God. Let's be honest. They believe that they're superior to that man's flawed, that we're susceptible to disease, and we have to do this. I don't think that's true. At the highest level, I think they know they're causing harm and they're just looking for an excuse. It's a cover story. It's to put people into a trance. I think it is witchcraft. I think it is. Yeah, I know it sounds far-fetched, but what justification do you have to put aluminum into a day-old baby, right? No one would feed a cell doesn't require aluminum. Have they done the safety testing for it? No, they refuse to do an injected safety trial for aluminum. It doesn't exist. They used an oral tolerance as their reference. It's not the same method of administration. It doesn't count. They just want to do it anyway. Why are you putting the WI38 or the MRC5 cells? It's black magic. They're trying to curse you. They're insulting. They're adding desecrations to your genome. They are satanic high priests, some of them more openly than others. But if you look at who's funding it, they actually are. So when you look into like Bohemian Grove and some of these characters, they're literally worshiping Moloch and the owls you sacrifice the children to. And they're consistent, right? They're like, oh yeah, you should get an abortion. You should get made. You should take hard street narcotics. They're trying to lead you off a cliff.
Yeah, just in case no one understands what MAID is, it's medically assisted something dying, isn't it?
Assistance in dying, yeah.
Assistance in dying. What a lovely word, maid. Oh, maid, like someone who helps you, cleans up, but yeah, you're going for a maid, as in like, you know, Soylent Green, go into a little room and die. Because now, apparently in Canada, you can do it if you run into debt, if you're in extreme poverty, if you're feeling depressed.
Yeah.
Dude, what's happened to you? What's happened to your beautiful country?
Right. There's no values. I think part of this was destroying religion. There's a pretty strong attack against any kind of Christian values or anything like that. And I believe in God, but I don't go to church every weekend or anything like that. But it's clear they're attacking Christianity. And I think that was the whole idea with the refusing the religious exemptions. They're basically saying, no, this inalienable right is gone. Like we don't even get to consider it. You're not going to even entertain it. So, yeah, we have it's the upside down world, right? And when I say it's an inversion, that's what Satanists practice, or Luciferians. People might think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. They're a powerful force in banking and medicine and the rest of it.
Yeah, they have their foot soldiers. They're called Freemasons. Yeah. Yep. I think it is an attack against religion, but I think all religions, unfortunately, are captured. It's not just. I only just believe in God. I just believe in God, and that's it. I don't believe in organized religion because I think it's all captured. I'll be honest with you. Whether you look at all of them, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they're all captured. All of them had their doors shut. All of them were pushing the jab. I used to be in a cult. And I can tell you right now, during the height of the pandemic, the leaders of the cult were saying, go get the jab, do your duty, get the jab. It's like, they're all the same, mate. The Pope, everybody.
It was pretty obvious.
Archbishop of Canterbury. Yeah, they're all like, and I keep saying this, I've said it, I'm sorry for the people who've heard this a million times, but honestly, I cannot picture Jesus Christ coming down to earth and going, right, where's my hand sanitizer, folks? Social distance. I need my mask, and I'm worshiping in front of the altar of the holy vaccine. I do not see that. The guy that washed people's feet.
Yeah, the lepers, right? And then they destroy your gods and replace it with theirs. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They want you to be obedient. That's what they're training you for. Go repeat what you heard on the news to your friend. Only repeat that. If anyone says anything different, you're wrong, and we're going to exclude you. That's what they did. And it's a humiliation ritual. Look at what they did. Go take this vaccine for a donut. Go get this in a strip club. Go get your vaccine as a McDonald's drive-thru with the vaccine on the side of your fries. They humiliated people. And people are just taking selfies saying, look, I got a burger with this. You are humiliated and you can't even see it. They can't tell right from wrong.
Yeah. One of the most powerful human emotions is shame. I think, first of all, it's fear. But the shame comes part of the fear because you're fearful of being shamed. You're fearful of your peers looking down at you or laughing at you or, being humiliated. And I think one of the problems of humanity is, I don't know about you, Paul, but sometimes I feel like I can understand why the evil predator class do what they do, because we are meat. We act like cattle. We literally are like sheep. And as long as we do this and act like this, well, what do you expect? It's the law of the jungle. It's going to happen. If you act like a sheep, guess what happens to sheep? But if you act like a lion, well, no one's going to mess with you. And I don't know if you follow me much, you're listening to my podcast. I keep saying, look, do not look for a messiah or a hero or a savior. You be your own leader. You be your own hero. Look in the mirror, and that's who's going to save you. Don't rely on anyone. Don't rely on me. Don't rely on any other famous person. God, forget all that garbage. God resides within all of us. We are our own heroes and leaders. And can you imagine if instead of 80% of people being sheep-like, 80% of the population was lion-like? Lions. Every one of us lions. Do you think these?
It would turn. It would turn quickly. Yeah. You only need about 3% of people to make a massive change in the world, right? To start a revolution or to change things. It's about 3%. We don't need 80 or 90% like they do. They need their people under constant fear and in a trance and repeating propaganda. When a few people are thinking critically and acting in their own sovereign interests, it can change very quickly. And they're terrified of that. And that's why they go after us as hard as they do. And that's why they take our medical license if we speak up, or character assassinate us to dismiss us. But you have to go. It's a journey, right? It's a different journey whether you're going to stick in a flock or herd, which does offer some protection, versus I'm going to stand out alone. I'm going to take the sticks and stones, and I'm going to be stronger for it. They're on the path of getting weaker and whittled down and hoping I'm not eaten next. We're out making it on our own.
100%. Are you not worried about having your license taken away or being reprimanded? Or are you not well known, or your title on Instagram is ignored science, so I guess they don't really know who you are?
Yeah. So rule number 2 of being a chiropractor is don't talk about vaccines. Okay? Like my college that controls my license says that. They threaten us with $25,000 fine and up to a year imprisonment for talking about vaccines, right?
What?
So
hold on, really?
Yeah. It's not our scope of practice. And I agree, it's not my scope of practice. I don't want it in my scope of practice. I'm not telling people, I'm not advising, no one here's my patient. I don't want you to be my prospective patient. We're just having a medical conversation. But I find it weird that there's supposed to be these different professions like chiropractor, like naturopath, like RMT. And the second rule is don't talk about vaccines. That raises some suspicion. What's going on there? So I get it. I do believe people should go talk to their medical doctor if they have questions. The problem is that 99.9% of the medical doctors went hook, line, and sinker. And I watched them go out in the public and make blatant lies to deceive people to go and get it. And then when people listened and got injured and came to them, I know for a fact they gaslighted them. I had friends call me from the ER saying I have unbearable chest pain, day of shot 2. And I was like, okay, ask for troponin, ask for a cardiac MRI. And I knew the cardiologist knew what I was getting at, and they just wouldn't do it. I'm like, oh, well, maybe get a lawyer then, because they're denying the test that would prove your diagnosis, so they can say there's no myopericarditis.
Oh, mate, I try and stay chirpy and happy, but sometimes the darkness does come out, and I get a bit angry and resentful, because I'm not practicing. I've handed back my license and registration because I don't want to be investigated over some bogus bullshit anonymous complaint again. And I can't practice. I can't earn a living doing what I love. And being an ethical surgeon and doctor, I've been totally royally screwed. And all the other people who are going out on TV, celebrity doctors on radio and TV, and pushing the fucking bullshit, and no one gets a slap on the wrist, no one gets reprimanded. Now it's coming out that they've even been paid by Big Pharma, and nothing's happening. And they carry on, everything goes hunky-dory for them. And it's like, what the hell? If that's not inversion of the world, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. It's the same people, right? As long as you do what you're told, as long as you're part of the mob, you're good, even if you know it's wrong. Where I was taught to do this. I was taught to interpret the scientific literature. I was taught courage, integrity, all these things, both in the military and outside. And then when shit hits the fan, that's when you show if you actually have any of these traits that you like to talk about. But these people do the exact opposite. They dress themselves up with ethics, and they don't have any. But so what do you expect people to do about it? The price you've paid is exceptional, right? You had a 25-year career as a surgeon. The public needs those type of services, and you have to walk away because you don't agree with some politicians. Like, politicians aren't doctors, right? This is part of the concern. Like, Justin Trudeau is a drama teacher that can't do math, and he's forcibly practicing medicine on the whole population. And then even the doctors that approve the vaccine, they're not experts. They don't know any of the stuff that I've learned from listening to people that actually make it, like the Robert Malones and the. But then I watched they're all lying. So Drew Weissman, I'm going to call him out individually. Drew Weissman and Carico, they're the ones that put the N1 methylpseudouridine in the vaccine. I call it a vaccine. It's a bioweapon. Let's be honest. It's a medical weapon. That's its intent, is to install a toxic. It's a weapon. People don't.
They got a Nobel Prize for that, didn't they?
Absolutely, they did. So it's not some obscure thing. The doctors should, again, do their due diligence. What is N1 methylpseudouridine and why is it there? Well, the answer is mRNA is not supposed to be in your blood, right? You have a very strong innate immune system that would attack it and kill it in place. It wouldn't even get to your cells. Yes, organic, real mRNA does degrade quickly, but they made a substitution where they placed every natural uracil with an N1 methyl. They made these little chemical changes, and then it literally inactivates your immune system. It shuts it off, so you don't get that natural God-given immunity. It turns it off. There's now multiple papers linking that with cancer. This is in the peer-reviewed literature. It's well known. Even worse, Drew Weissman gave an interview. I forget the name of the foundation he gave it to, but I have it up, where he said there's no difference between the mRNA in your cells and the N1-methylpseudouridine in the vaccine. It's like, this guy is literally the expert. He's the one that decided to put it in there, and he said there's no difference. Why did you earn a Nobel Prize then?
Wow.
If there's no difference.
Hi, me again. You're listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or on his Substack, or simply buy him a coffee with one of the donation links which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
So this is where, the people that do know are lying. Like, how are you going to say Uracil is the exact same thing as N1? Why do you deserve any credit or recognition then? Why didn't you just use the real one if they're the exact same? They know there's a difference. They're just lying. And it's for a nefarious reason.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, because then this thing does go into your genome and it can be degraded like normal. You know, everything happens. Our body is beautiful. You either believe in this creation and what we're made, how we're made, and think it's a miracle of design by this creator, and it's something really beautiful, or you think it's something flawed. You know, for example, you've got this disease because you've got a genetic flaw. That's bullshit. It's not because you've got a genetic flaw. Something like 2% of all diseases and problems are actually genetic. Vast majority have got nothing to do with your genes.
It's all epigenetics. It's all epigenetics and lifestyle, right? With minor exceptions.
Yeah.
But they want you to focus on those minor exceptions, and now they are absolutely targeting the genome. I'm sure you're aware of the SV40 with the polio vaccine, right? Just how long this story has been going on. So I think a lot of people now know that simian virus 40, SV40, was contaminating the polio vaccine of the 50s. This is undisputed, well-known information in the literature, right? Why did that happen? Well, it's because they brought African green monkeys from Africa over to the States to make their polio vaccine. That's where they grew the polio virus. It was contaminated. They're trying to hide the connection with cancer, but it's pretty much admitted. It'll increase lymphomas, leukemias, and some other solid bone tumors. That's the whole SV40. So some scientists that figured that out in the 50s, the CIA caught on to this, and they said, instead of like, hold the phone, stop injecting, we're going to give our population cancer, they said, now we have a weapon. We're going to go try and inject Fidel Castro with this and give him cancer. So then they had a medical team doing this, and there's a whole documentary on this of the people that actually did it. But they didn't tell the public to stop doing it so they could use it as a weapon. So this is the 50s, right? And then supposedly there's no more SV40. But where they did take the SV40 is to drive nuclear import and target the genome. So if you go look, that's how they escort any foreign nucleo base pairs and all that into the genome. It's SV40.
For God's sake, I didn't know about that. I didn't know any of that Fidel Castro polio business. Honestly, I didn't. I'm quite normie, and I'm waking up quite fast to all this garbage. It's been like a crash course for me. You know, like when you're when you're in these these space movies when they go on a jump, when the spaceship goes in a light jump and it goes and it just the stars are whizzing. I feel like I was just walking along and I've just suddenly entered this wormhole and I'm just being like, woof, crash course.
Yeah.
And all this bullshit.
Right. So the normies are going to hear some of these claims and think that's just ludicrous. Like, no. I won't say things if there's not a trustworthy source, right? I liken this to kind of dealing with serial killers. Like, you have to listen. You expect they're going to lie and manipulate, but you have to listen to what they willingly concede, right? So when I look at the CDC or I look at some of these things that have all these big conflict of interest, I'm like, what are they willing to say in their own words? And they make some pretty crazy admissions. So the SV40 in the polio vaccines is admitted. They also completely failed to inactivate the polio with the cutter incident. They caused polio. 93% of the polio cases were vaccine strain. This is often the case with measles as well. You can actually do a whole genome sequencing and sequence. No, that's actually vaccine strain measles that you've shed. But anyway, they're targeting the genome is where I'm going with this. So that SV40 that should have been a contaminant that should have like hold the phone, stop it. They then go into use for gene research for bringing these protein or these nucleic acids into and now it's in the Pfizer vaccine. I know this for a fact. Health Canada knows this. There's all kinds of emails on it. They've used not the whole SV40 virus, because that's what they're going to tag as misinformation, but they took the 72 base pair promoter enhancer of it to take any of these things and drive it into the nucleus. DNA contamination causes cancer. I hope the audience knows that. It causes insertional mutagenesis, but it actually doesn't even have to get inside the nucleus to cause cancer. It can just get inside the cytoplasm.
So you talked about...
There's a whole pathway.
Look, I'm sure it's causing the cancers, and William Macus has talked about turbo cancers, but apparently turbo cancer is a conspiracy theory and doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's called hyperprogressive disease. Yeah, so are we relying on Wikipedia to make our definitions and define the truth? So why do the normies believe what they do? Because they capture what information they're even exposed to, and then they're trained to respond in an emotional way to anything that's not within that causes them discomfort or displeasure.
Exactly. Just expand on that. So when you present facts and truth, contrary to what they've been programmed, their reaction is to get viscerally uncomfortable and to run away from you.
Right. Absolutely. To reject, to get anger, that you destabilize them, that you're causing them discomfort, and they have to reject it. And this is what I mean. It's psychological manipulation.
I don't want to talk about this.
Right. You've triggered someone, right? And now they're not open to anything. So if you want to interact with these people, you have to meet them on their level and bring them along. I honestly, at this stage, don't think it's worth it. Just being honest. Do you have a self-preservation mechanism? Nothing of the last 4 years has caused you to second guess anything and look for a second opinion? Then I am going to take the natural evolution Darwin Award. Maybe I don't want you on my team. It's too late.
I'm with you there.
So everyone came to our side. I look around and no one's wearing masks anymore. You're 15% of people still getting boosters. Oh, so you all did figure it out and came to my side. You realize you might get a clot. You might get a heart. You stopped. Where did you say I'm sorry? Where did you say sorry for discriminating against you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to happen. And so why do people not take this path? Because it's hard to walk. Because it causes a lot of pain, and you have to deal with a lot of strong negative emotions. That maybe our government's actually not looking out for us at all. And then it's like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, but this is the problem that people are resilient
enough. What do I have to do now that I know that they're bad people?
Absolutely. Just say that again. So why aren't people saying sorry? Yeah, we were wrong, and why are they not doing that?
Because it puts responsibility on them. One, there's a gravity. So think of what some of these people have done. They've went out on the radio, they made all these claims, they parroted things they thought were trusted sources. Now, science has changed. We've actually harmed people. To come to terms and actually face that reality is just too strong. People's mental health is already poor, not doing well. And some of the people just can't take that pressure, and they're just going to cave, and they would rather be comforted by a lie. They would rather believe that the COVID vaccines ended the pandemic and saved millions of lives.
Dude, 100%. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, we went on a long road trip recently. We had to go and visit a sick family member. And, we stopped at these service stations. And, mate, everyone I was looking at was sick, overweight, limping, walking stick, looked pale. Like, people are looking unwell. Like, I don't know if that's what you're seeing, but I'm not imagining it. People look like shit these days. I'm like,
oh no, the mental health epidemic is real. The increased all-cause mortality is real. And my question, did the people want this, right? That was always why I got into healthcare, is to improve people's health, to have that outcome, right? To have outcome-based medicine, right? So it's like, how do I get you sleeping better? How do I get you moving more? How do we decrease stress? And then do these people even want to be healthy? So part of how have we got here where pharma calls the shots and pharma is controlling and making it all this legal, right? But do the people actually want this? Like, are they willing to invest themselves, value health, or do they just, is this a path of extinction? Like, do they just want to die? I get it. People are in survival mode, but you can actually harden yourself and become stronger in that as well. That's what we do in the military all the time.
Wow. Okay.
So the military has turned on the population, or at least segments of it. It was Operation Warp Speed. It is a countermeasure, not a medical device, right? That's why there was no informed consent. This is the military claiming that they're attacked with a weapon and they're responding with countermeasures. So that's why I'm saying, oh, they're using the military against us. And some of this is quite obvious and direct. Well, one, they forced the military to inject or leave. So that happened, just along with everyone else. But the CIA connection is quite real in terms of why mRNA. Albert Bourla went on and said he doesn't even know why his company chose mRNA. There was other more established protein routes and all this they could have taken, but they came and they were confident and they said this was the good way, so I believe them. It's like, that doesn't sound like robust science. That sounds like you got told what to do. So it is the CIA.
I've seen that video, and the question is, who was they? Who was they talking to him?
Well, I'll fill in the blanks. So it's why they're able to control the media as well. So I'm sure you know about Mockingbird, where these White House and CIA narratives can get pushed in the news. So very directly, Chris Darby was the director of In-Q-Tel. So I don't know if people know, but the CIA actually has an investment capital branch called In-Q-Tel. They invest in all kinds of things. So he went over to a company called Resilience, and that's who actually manufactures the modified mRNA. They're here. They're in Canada. They make it all, and they make it for Moderna. They make it for Pfizer. Who else is on that board? Scott Gottlieb from the FDA. Susan Desmond Hellman from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they're all in these different companies. It's like, I would think being on the board of Pfizer would be enough. Which, So go look up, go to the board of Resilience, you'll see. But yeah, In-Q-Tel is investment. It's a branch of the CIA.
Central Intelligence Agency. Oh shit! Board of Resilience, right? And who's on this?
Well, Darby is the one that was the director of In-Q-Tel, but some of the other names are illuminating as well.
I can't find the Board of Resilience, but there you go. ResilienceGlobal.org, is that it? I don't know if this is the right one.
They have many names, but I'm not sure that.
Okay, fine. Oh, man.
It's an easy fact check. I'll send the references, but all these companies are all floating between all these different companies. What's another one? Illumina. So Illumina is the one that does all the genome sequencing to say, oh, that's that variant or whatever. It's all the same people.
Really? Can you send this all down in an email later on, and I can put it in the Substack that will go with this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I put some of the resilience stuff on one of the posts on Ignore Science, but yeah, it's all provable. So I'm used to this. Okay, so my job in the military was communications. I had to brief. I controlled all the message traffic. I did all the encryption, top secret security clearance. I had to advise command, right, about ceremonial things, about messaging. And sometimes the commanding officers are well versed in things, but they're not experts on this area. So I would have to advise if something was wrong, right? And I would be outranked. Obviously, the commanding officer is the superior officer, but I would have to make strong suggestions. They're doing something wrong ceremonial, or that urgent message traffic is. I was the one relaying those instructions, like turn the ship to this course. And if they're not paying attention, I have to get their attention and kind of, even if they disagree with me, I'm not arguing as my person. I'm arguing as the reference that I'm holding, right? Because our orders come from much higher than the ship. No, this is the orders coming from the Queen or the Minister of National Defense. I'm not arguing person to person. I'm just telling you the power of the resource. And I think if people even did some basic fact checking of don't believe it because I say it, believe it because you're able to go find it and see for yourself, so you know it's a fact. That it's not just, Dr. Paul said this or...
Can I talk about something else? Just very quickly, you said the second law second law of chiropractic medicine is not to question vaccine. What's the first law?
It's just the scope of practice.
Right. Do you know what I used to think when I was, because I'm an MD surgeon, I used to think that chiropractors and osteopaths and physios and podiatrists, they had it slightly less tough, and their boards were be a bit more holistic and a bit more just nice. I've discovered no. Like over here in the UK, there's a guy called Simon King. He's brilliant. He's a chiropractor. I've done a podcast with him, but because I'm so backed up, it's not going to be published for about a month or so. But he did a manipulation on my back 2 months ago, and I'm telling you right now, my back's been great since then. But he doesn't call himself a chiropractor anymore because he fell foul of the chiropractic council, and so he's not allowed to use that title anymore. And there's another lady here in the UK called Michelle Davies, who's again was critical of what the osteopathic council were doing, and they just went for her. They were militant. And it's like, I think all these regulatory bodies, no matter where they are in the world, they're not doing what they're meant to do, which is protect the patient and safeguard the profession. They're really a tool of the government and big pharma and making sure we stay in line. It sounds like it's the same that's going on in Canada. Am I right?
It's the same everywhere. All these people are moving in lockstep, and then it's who's providing this coordination, right? Like, I don't have any patient complaints, but that's not what they care about. They compare, are you going to toe the line? Are you going to join the party? Or else, right? That's what they're doing. And the public is saying, well, 99% of doctors agree that this is safe and effective, so why are you disagreeing, kind of thing? Because they're going to default to these kind of, it's not evidence. They're just saying, well, 99% of doctors took it, so it must be good. So we can talk about that if you want. So vaccination is in the scope of all medical doctors, right? Whether you're a surgeon or whether you're a pediatrician, it's still in your scope of practice. Am I correct? I wouldn't expect you to know every single historical detail and scientific paper on vaccination. I probably would with pediatricians, though, right? That's kind of their thing. Weigh the baby, inject it, right?
So yes and no. So basically, when I did a video saying, we need to question what's going on and all these injuries and harms we're seeing, and is it down to this experiment on humanity? Maybe we should do a pause.
Mm-hmm.
I was contacted by my medical directors, and they said, Spire Healthcare and Circle Group, both national medical directors came down on me and said, stop. Dr. Peter James, Mr. Peter James and Dr. Kathy Kale said, no, you can't do this.
Yep.
You need to stop. Stick to your scope of practice. As you're a foot and ankle, you're a foot and ankle surgeon, so go fix bunions and broken ankles. Don't talk about this. What do you think of that?
But you graduated medical school. It literally is. So this is the game, right? Don't talk about it unless you're a medical doctor. Oh, you are a medical doctor? Well, you're a surgeon. Oh, well, you're an internist. You're not a vaccinologist. Oh, you're a vaccinologist. You don't see patients. So who's running the show?
Everybody's pointing fingers at each other. You've nailed it. You've nailed it. There's a meme of Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man, pointing at Spider-Man, pointing at Spider-Man. Everyone's pointing fingers at each other except, no one's taking responsibility, and it's just an excuse. So you've nailed it. So Bill Gates, who has no medical qualifications, he can talk about vaccines to the whole goddamn world and all the politicians and all the leaders of the world, and it's okay. But I'm a doctor and a surgeon, and I've been through med school, and I know everything about informed consent, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. So I actually wrote back to them saying, what do you mean it's not my scope of practice? My scope of practice is patient safety first and foremost. It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's where they want to be the only ones that can talk. Some of them have overtly said it, like Jacinda Ardern, I think, of New Zealand, basically said, we're the only trusted source. Don't trust anybody else, right? This is a sign someone's trying to manipulate you, right? Don't listen to anyone outside the cult. The big question is, I wouldn't ask someone to do something I wouldn't do myself, right? Do I expect all medical doctors, if they're against this, to turn over their license? That's a phenomenal sacrifice you made, and I think it makes a powerful point and is noble. But 99% of people won't do it, and should we expect them to? Again, assumption. I assumed if they were doing something harmful, they would organize and walk out, right?
But Paul, if 20% of doctors did what I did, everything would come crashing down, and then we would be able to rejoin and enter, and everything would be fine. I'm just saying, like, if
100%.
we all just went no and took our power from them, then it would all collapse and then we could go back to work again. But everybody was like, no. And you say 99%, it's actually a lot less than that. 0.003% of doctors publicly have spoken out against what's going on in the UK. 0.003%. So, yeah.
But are they up to date then?
Yeah. Can I just quickly ask you something?
I know they're not.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? On your Instagram, you sent me a whole bunch of messages way at the beginning. I'm just going to show you. These were DMs. Can we just talk about some of this? So you sent me all these little shots. So let's talk about this. Serious adverse events in children aged 11 to 25 months. So these are infants. These are like little kids, toddlers. Among these 4 studies, 0.9% of subjects reported a serious adverse event within the 31 period. And that's a funny thing because, for adverse events, like when it comes to surgery, we have short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And when you do experiments, you really need to be following them up for 10, 15, 20 years. And if I was a serious investigator and I'm injecting something in a little toddler, I would want to know what would happen across a lifetime. What's going to happen when they're a teenager? What's going to happen to their fertility when they're an adult? What's going to happen to their children? And 31 days is, to me, just a joke. It's nothing. And I think most vaccine studies are very short term. Am I right?
Well, so Hep B is a great place to start because they think it should happen on day one, right? So it must be very necessary, very safe, or they wouldn't do it, right? So off the top of my head, Energix, hepatitis B, was tested on how many people? 58. 58, so that's the power, that's the size of the trial. 58 hepatitis B positive by both surface antigen personnel. So that's also a very specific population. If you do your test on people that only have hepatitis B, how do you translate that to people that don't have hepatitis B? So how long was the safety on that? You can go fact check the package insert, but I believe it was 4 days for Energix B, and I believe it was 5 days for Recombavax, the other hepatitis. So 4 days of safety testing to inject day-old infants.
Wow.
And is all the safety? It's absurd. Was there a placebo? Do you believe in science? Do you use placebos? No, of course there wasn't.
Yeah, Turtles All the Way Down has a whole chapter on this, and it shows that there's no long-term studies and no true placebos. This Havrix. What is Havrix? What vaccine is that?
We're talking about tetanus.
Right.
You got me on the spot. I'm not sure, but they're talking about tetanus, and who received Infatrix? Yeah, this was in response to him saying that severe adverse were 1 in a million. And my point was, if you go through the actual package insert, the actual source document, it varies from about 0.3% up to 6-8% severe adverse in meningococcal. So my whole point is no, it's not extremely rare 1 in a million. This is saying almost 1%.
1 in 100. Yeah, 1 in 100 is. 1 in 100
is
very
18 on the schedule.
1 in 100 is very different from 1 in a million. And if you're getting 18 shots, that's quite a lot. That's a big risk, a cumulative risk. And you're right. We should talk about the fact that this was Asim Malhotra telling me on my podcast, but you know what? The COVID vaccines are very different from, the childhood vaccines, which we know are one of the safest drugs or thereabouts. He said something along those lines, and my jaw dropped. I don't know if you saw my reaction. Did you see my reaction? I was like, nobody.
You tried to give him a gentle nudge, but this would be the biggest mistake if we had this traumatizing event and we learned nothing from it. And this is the thing. So it's like, is all this? I think there's going to be admission that this was not a good decision, but all the other ones are okay. That the childhood schedule is okay, that any future mRNA, lipid nanoparticle, the RSV, the bird flu, they're all going to be okay. It's like, no, if you fall for the same mistakes, they will try and exploit you again.
Oh, mate, you've nailed it. I worry about this. I worry the limited hangout's going to come out and go, oh, you know what, we rushed it. Oh, you know what, we made a mistake this time. But you know what, we've learned our lessons, and we've fine-tuned the technology. And next time, don't worry, it's going to be much better. And I'm worried that.
No, they did that to Robert Malone. Robert Malone, who invented this whole platform, I know you had him on the show and interviewed him. He was aware of the problems. He abandoned it. And he was convinced by that exact same technique that someone he trusted, someone he believed, said, don't worry about that, mate. We fixed it. It's safe now.
Yeah.
Even he's susceptible to it.
And what I'm worried about is that the people who have pushed it and who punished people like me, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. They get their Nobel Prizes, their damehoods. I don't know if you know, but the people who pushed the vaccine and created the AstraZeneca, the whole debacle, they've got damehoods and knighthoods, and it's like it's like bullshit.
Beyond the obvious that they mandated a product that's now been removed from the market. So in Canada, we were told to mix and match, to take the first one available, that there's no differences. What was this? And now they're recalled. They also set the standard of when to recall an injection, right? So they're like, shot risk of 1 in roughly 55,000 off the market. So some of these risks are a lot higher than 1 in 55,000.
You're right.
Which would be, and historical examples too, right? Had a few cases of intussusception with rotavirus off the market. Yet this one, they have 16,000 deaths and VAERS.
Which we know is underreported. But listen, let's go back to the mix and match thing, because that's a really good point you made. I mean, when has it ever been the case of, I'm on this antidepressant, two grannies sitting in a, croquet club or whatever, or two guys in a golf club or whatever, and they go, I've run out of my arrhythmia drug. Which drug do you take? I take this one. It's slightly different from yours. It's fine. Just give me that tablet. It'll be fine.
Swap it out. Yeah. Be fine.
I'm on this antidepressant. Which one are you on? I'm a bit low on my one. Can I have a packet of yours as well? I'll just mix it up. It doesn't matter about the dosages and the different targeting the way they work. No, it's fine. When has it ever been allowed where you've been allowed to mix and match drugs like that? Never. And on this,
it's a mockery.
It's a mockery, but it's in your face. So, I mean, recently I had a person, I said, are you going to take any more? Went, no, I'm not going to take any more. I went, okay. Yeah, I had the Moderna for my first one, and then I had the AstraZeneca for the second one, but I'm not having any more. I went, you had 2 different ones? And they went, yeah. I went, did you not think, how can this be? Like, they work in a different way. And they went, no. They just looked at me blankly like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, you really just don't get how it works. But doctors push this. Doctors should know better. And I'm the one being called a quack for calling out this bullshit.
Because they have to protect their own identity. The same thing, why do they lie? Because they have to, otherwise no one would take it. The standard of evidence to convince people initially was very, very small. They just said 95% effective. They made a bunch of claims about herd immunity and protecting others, do the right thing, and everyone bought in. Then when some of the scientific stuff came out, it's a one-sided argument. I don't think you can argue safety and efficacy any longer. With all the DNA contamination, with the frame shifting, that this thing is not just making spike protein, it's making everything. Nobody really understands. No one's talking about the lipid nanoparticles. You should be talking about that. You should be talking about synthetic biology in general, that they're just counterfeiting and everything and overloading the toxic burden. They're putting this stuff in everything. They're going to try and find a way to get it in you against your will or through deception. So best is convince you that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. So let's go back a bit. What do you mean it's producing more than just spike protein? And what do you mean when you said it's in everything?
Yeah. So the whole idea is that you have this modified mRNA. It gets delivered through the lipid nanoparticles, goes to the ribosomes. The ribosomes read the code and make the spike protein, right? Right away, that's a bad idea, right? In what way did you make the spike protein weaker? You didn't. You took the whole genome sequence that CCP provided, and you had every single cell expressing the spike protein. Bad idea. Immune system's going to attack it. It's going to lead to autoimmunity. How much are you going to make? What cells? Where's it going to go? The answer is everywhere. So what do I mean it's not making only spike protein? Well, that N1-methylpseudouridine I talked about delays the ribosome when it starts reading that code that makes the spike protein. So it'll make off-target or random protein. So you're not reliably always making spike protein. It might make something else. It might code for a dud. It might code for just a misshapen, misfolded, but it's not all just the spike protein.
Wow.
And they knew about this before.
Do you know what? I thought it was a batshit crazy idea. I mean, like how, like it doesn't make sense that the spike protein is apparently the bad part of this virus. But you know what? We're going to make the same spike protein, apparently slightly different, and we make that, and it's just as bad, just as toxic. How much is being made? How long is it being made for? What's the upper safety limit? How do you stop it being produced? What's the antidote? What's the antidote for it? Like, what the hell? It doesn't even make sense. It's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
All normal questions, but they don't care. If you did due diligence, if you cared about your health, you would ask those questions, but these people don't care. And it's because they have immunity. They're not fearful of consequences. They are psychopathic. They do not care. They're out to con, deceit, manipulate, take no responsibility. Like I said, the literature is, if you're following the science, they made the wrong decision, right? But they're relying on propaganda. They're relying on this this information warfare to try and hold on to people's brains and support. Part of it is they just don't want 8 billion people on the planet. Okay. This is, again, Henry Kissinger stuff. There's too many people consuming too many resources, using too much CO2. They want less people. So how do you do that in a way that doesn't trigger panic and fear in the population? You have to subdue them, right? And do it in a way that's safe and pleasant. So it's not really a surprise that MAID got very popularized and normalized at the same time they're doing all this, and all the genital mutilation and all this. It's an attack against, it's anti-human. And and it is anti-human. They're transhumanists. They believe that humans are the old way of doing things. They want to merge themselves into computers. That's why Bill Gates is involved there. And they're going to try and destroy the genome to do it. And they're going to do it with CRISPR and a few other technologies. And yes, they're using the same type of technology in the food supply and in geoengineering and other things as well. It's a full-out attack. These people are not on our team.
You'd almost think they're aliens.
So it doesn't matter what.
You'd almost think they're aliens, and you could be forgiven for thinking these people are aliens and they just want to wipe us out. Like, if I was an alien species, this is what I would do if I want to take over a planet. Just slowly poison them and kill them without even knowing.
But how do they get the compliance of the people that aren't them, right? Because there's a very small clique that are actually this pure evil, right? It's a small group of them. But how do they recruit us to destroy ourselves, right? So this is the question I have for some of the medical doctors that should have the ability to research all this stuff, that are then watching their colleagues drop dead, right? So my fiance worked at a hospital. She was on the COVID floor. They no problem treating COVID patients person to person, never caught COVID. Vaccines come out, not a big deal, wasn't a crazy push until about April. Then they started saying, started applying pressure. Then they started saying, give us your certificate if you haven't. Then if you're not going to, we want you to take this course. So I took screenshots of the course. They claimed 100% effective against death. They claimed 100% effective against. I have this. That was the claim. That's a ludicrous claim. That's so bold. We don't care. So one person is double vaccinated and dies. Your statement's a proven lie. Yet that's what they went with. They're just so in your face. We don't care. So she had to resign as well. They didn't care that she risked her life when it was a more dangerous strain. There was no loyalty. They didn't care. The point of this, the emergency doctor at this very hospital dropped dead of cardiac arrest at age 50. His name's Dr. Paul Hannum. He's an ex-Olympian, marathon runner, and sailor. Dropped dead days after his booster. I believe it was his third shot. It might have been his fourth. But that was the chatter at the hospital. And I just hear some of the inside chatter. There's a lot of lymphoma on the clinic. There's a lot, and they know. When someone comes in and they're hospitalized with COVID, if they would have had their 8 shot, they wouldn't have it. We know they know.
Yeah.
I can't speak to their mental state, what they feel like after they've publicly gone out and pushed it or acquiesced or said nothing as their colleagues were fired. You can't be too I can't speak to their state of psychology. They're in a bit of a conundrum. So when we get attacked, when we get called liars, when they go after us, they're protecting themselves. They have to. If one ant stands up, they might be able to suppress us, but when I think they know they've lost, but they're still going to brazenly push it in your face. I think the whole system's at stake, to be honest, not just over this injection topic, but the finances. Like we're just in overhead in debt. I think they're trying to bring down the old system to install their new one, right? It's a controlled demolition, just like 9/11 and World Trade Center 7. They're trying to bring down the existing structure, right? So you can't have a strong commonwealth or a strong nation state if you want world government, right? So they get their agents into them, and then they run them into the ground like economic hitmen to lose faith in the old order, so people will be more submissive to accept the new one.
You've nailed it. You've nailed it. Sometimes I worry
Yeah.
that I'm acting in some respect for them because I'm calling out all the bullshit and losing faith in our current institutions. And I'm actually inadvertently working for these bastards because I'm tearing it down. But I'm not working for them. But these regulatory bodies, these institutions, they have failed us. That's the truth. The legal system, the judiciary, journalism, media, politicians, they have failed us. They're not doing their job. But the question is, what do we replace it with? We don't replace it with a one world government. I want to dismantle the WHO. I want to dismantle the UN. The answer is decentralization. The answer is no big government. The answer is going back to community level and just being governed like that. That is the answer. The answer is sound money, fiscal policy, not fiat money based on something. This, not on the debt-based economy. This is how we win. Not one world government and more of the same digital currency, more draconian things, more authoritarian, more bread and circus bullshit. What I find crazy is all these young men in their prime that should be defending their loved ones and their family. Instead of raging against the machine and the government, they're cheering on some football team and drinking the beer and throwing their pizzas around. Like, for fuck's sake, defend your country, protect your family, not vape on your little cherry vape and watch football. But no,
Right.
we've been dumbed down. This is the problem. We've been dumbed down, all of us.
Right. So there are certain roles. It's your job to step up when shit hits the fan, right? So military should have stepped up on this. Again, stakes are high because if you're insubordinate, they'll call you an insider threat. They'll say it's a mutiny, but this is the level of thing we have to consider when we don't have leaders. We have misleaders. We have people that are going against our interests. The government has turned cancerous, and it's just using the flag and its perceived authority, just like in the Milgram study, to try and lead you to your own destruction. So if they've lied before, they're done. Like, that's my problem with all this. One, the brave people, the policemen, the military, they folded.
Yeah.
With very little exception. And they just have to live with that. That's on them, but they didn't do their job, which was protect us, right? That's why I joined. Like, I fell for the 9/11 propaganda. That was 2001. I joined the military in 2002, put in my name to go to Afghanistan. Didn't end up getting to go, but I was willing to put my life on the line to go kill terrorists in foreign lands. That was my perception. And then I learned all about Larry Silverstein taking the lease a month before and George Bush's brother being in charge of security. Yeah, and I saw how that, but they're good at tricking people. And now that people have been kind of deceitfully recruited onto their side, they're going to feel guilty, right? When we expose it all, they're going to realize what they're complicit in. And how do you come to terms with that? And how do we even, would you trust them or welcome them back? I don't know. They would have to earn it. Yeah, I mean, but that's how do we go against our own military, right?
Right. Listen, tell me something. Let's do something positive. So you're a chiropractor, you're a good doctor,
Yep.
You're someone we can trust, you've got morals and integrity. What are your top 5 top health tips for a healthy life and good, longevity? Living to 90 and being smart, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, not 90 in a nursing home for the last decade. What's your top 5 tips?
Yeah, absolutely. Number 1, take care of your nervous system. You basically are your nervous system, your central nervous system, brain, the spinal cord. Take care of it. You basically have your 2 branches, your flight or flight, which people are living in 99% of the time, even talking about this stuff. It's triggering. It gets adrenaline, cortisol, shoulders come up, everybody gets tense. People have to learn strategies how to shift back into your rest and digest parasympathetic state. It's easiest thing to do for that. It sounds simple, but it works, is deep breathing. Everything is the breath, taking full breaths, long, slow exhale, closing your eyes. So deep breathing, vagus nerve work. Okay, simple little tip. There's a branch of the vagus nerve in your ear, auricular branch, that you can stimulate. Just massage, rub a Q-tip. Very good. Yeah, if you have a dog and you rub their ears, they're going to immediately.
So hold on one second.
Calm down, go to sleep.
So hold on one second.
Yeah.
Like literally just doing that. I like that.
Yeah, there's this semi-little lunar canal in your ear here. There's a branch of the vagus nerve there. I acupuncture it all the time. It puts people like right to sleep.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, if people are having high anxiety, digestive issues, it's because all their energy is in fight or flight and not rest and digest, right? So we're talking about heavy stuff. This is how it's okay to be under stress to feel the pressure, but you have to be able to shift out.
I just had
if you don't want to have a mental breakdown.
I just had acupuncture 2 days ago, for the first time by Poppy, and it's for my neck, my back, and my hay fever. And my sister, my wife, had the next one, and very similar, but she also had a little pin, acupuncture pin, temporarily put in her ear, and she said that's for anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, it'll fall out when it's ready. So you've nailed that one. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, fine. Right.
Yeah, it's real anatomy. It's not foo-foo stuff for auricular branch of vagus nerve. That's why calming music is good. I strongly support all lifestyle medicine. The probably biggest thing you can do for your health is sleep adequately, right? Defend that at all costs. Next, avoid the chronic stress, right? Look for signs. Your nervous system's always talking to you, right? That's the whole purpose of pain or discomfort, anxiety. Your body is giving you its wisdom, saying like, no, you're under too much pressure, like shift away from it, right?
Yeah.
So go spend some time in nature, go pet an animal, go put your feet in the water or on the ground, find a way to be able to check out of it, and don't stay in these little bubbles. Like, I think even social media is incredibly toxic. Obviously, I use it as a means to still interact with the larger audience, but it's how to preserve your mental health, right? Because no matter what, if you want to be an effective warrior on the battlefield, or just as strong as yourself for your kids or for your grandkids, you have to stay strong, right? Even under adversity. So you have to look after yourself. Some people lean to, like a lot of healthcare providers don't look after their own health, right?
Yeah.
You always have to save some energy for the next day.
Yeah.
So as soon as, I mean, even if that's taking time off or, but yeah, breathing, social is huge, right? So as much as eating whole foods and stuff is important, it's almost just as important of who you're eating with. So I try to keep my circle like mostly aligned people where it's not a source of like resentment or argument or negativity. You have to have your own tribe of people that are supportive and like-minded, especially as we fall into all these kind of divide and conquer strategies. You have to just find your tribe of people that, and they don't have to have all the same beliefs, but you can't be at each other's throats over core differences of human rights and things like this. So having a strong social circle is incredibly protective. For some, it's spirituality, but the negative side of the herd is people will fall into a trance and do what they're told. The positive is people get a tremendous amount of strength from having even just a little bit of support from other people.
Beautiful. I love it.
So those are kind of the big ones.
I've got two more questions. Now, you talked about sequencing of this, virus or whatever. What is your view on the whole no virus business?
It's complicated. Again, I'm not a virologist. I understand their point. I've watched some of their materials. I've seen they make some good points. There's limitations to everything, right? So it's the whole like, oh, I have a positive PCR test, therefore it's COVID. It's like, well, what's the PCR test really finding? You're just amplifying all the acids and then tagging a small fraction of it. Oh, and there's COVID. Does it mean you can transmit it or it's symptomatic? No. I think there's some false claims around it in that. So, for example, the governments were asked, where did you isolate COVID from any of these patients? And the answer is they didn't, right? Like they just do their PCR test or their little nose raping and said, yeah, it's COVID. It's the ultimate kind of catch-all excuse. It doesn't mean, in my opinion, that the military is not trying to weaponize viruses, right? So I would say for sure it was a synthetic virus that had some assistance. So there's that whole no virus group denies all this, and that's where I really have issues.
Yeah.
They've been publishing this type of research for a long time. Even Fort Detrick openly publishes how they tried to weaponize Ebola and give it to monkeys and cause. So even if it's all fake, it's like, well, even you're communicating the intent to do that is messed up, that you're getting all this money to try and make a more infectious virus with a more pathogenic virus, which is the case with the avian flu. So I understand why some people think that it's all terrain and it's all your health. I think there's some major, I don't agree with that. The strongest evidence for me is when you can compare what's the patient's real symptoms, right, with a PCR test that you are finding some evidence of it with whole genome sequencing. If you have all three of those things at a low PCR cycle, say 20 cycles, I would accept that's evidence. That should at least be a differential diagnosis. It could be COVID, right? Especially as then when that patient gets better, whatever the symptom is, and not asymptomatic, that doesn't count, and then the PCR test gets negative, I think that's pretty good evidence that there was a disease caused by it. This is the whole correlation versus causation thing, right? So they're saying, oh, there's a picture on an electron graph and you're calling it whatever, the measles virus. Well, where did you prove that measles virus is causing that rash? They think it's all terrain. And terrain's incredibly important. I don't disagree on that. Make yourself as healthy, as resilient as possible, but they are messing around with these things. They've published it for a long time. I mean, if it's not true, then there's no simian virus 40, then there's no measles. It's kind of absurd. I think one thing that kind of proves it wrong is natural immunity. So if you get measles as a kid, you basically have lifelong immunity to it. You're not going to get it again, right? If it was a 5G or chemtrails or anything like that, you would constantly get more of this measles thing if that's what you thought caused it. But the fact you only get it once, the body learns, and you don't get it again, that's pretty good evidence. I'll segue a bit into what I do want people to understand this. So correlation versus causation gets a lot of things off the hook, right? Someone takes a vaccine, they drop dead 3 days later. Correlation, not causation. It's like, well, do you know how to actually grade causation? Because there are other things other than just timing. So temporal association is huge. It is a requirement for most things. Cancer kind of being an exception. But there's many other factors like a dose response, right? So if myocarditis is more common on dose 2 than dose 1, now you have dose response. If it's a coherence signal that it's the same in Canada as it is in the UK, now we have some coherence. There's 10 factors. They're called Bradford Hill criteria. You should consult them until just saying correlation isn't causation. But
I love it. That was really great. So
people aren't following science. I should make that clear. No science was required for people to take them, so it's probably unlikely that science is really going to change their mind, to be honest, right? They were convinced off social pressures, off incentives. It wasn't science that convinced people to take this in the first place. The science was quite negative. I can show you many negative efficacy studies. I can show you many negative peer-reviewed science journals. That's not what convinced people. It was perceived authority, and can you resist it when you know someone's lying?
Wow, you've nailed it.
All the same people are still in power.
You've nailed it. You've nailed it. All the people are in power.
So that's why I called myself ignore science. I was like, 95. Is it 95% effective? Is it less than 1% effective? Do you know what an absolute risk reduction is? Do you know that they hid them all as suspected cases? Do you know that they didn't consider fever in the clinical trial? Like, oh, the clinical trial was only for no one that had COVID. So that describes virtually no one at this. So there's no justification for anyone in your trial because everyone has COVID by now. Like it was just fraud upon fraud upon fraud. None of it was science. It was all manipulation and informational warfare. And it was done lockstep with full support of the government, with the military, with the media. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. I'm with you on everything. Listen, there's a bit of a problem. I haven't found one thing that I disagree with. Shit, damn it. The terrain no virus. You know the terrain no virus thing. Listen, I agree. I'm very sympathetic 90% of what they say. Look, the whole PCR thing, the medical system is corrupt.
For sure.
The medical education is corrupt.
Agreed.
The medical journals are corrupt. There's a lot of fraud that they're pushing drugs and vaccines when they shouldn't be. Vaccinology is bullshit. The whole virology, the way they do it is quackery and witchcraft. I'm with them. I'm with them. You know, so the PCR testing is all right. I get it. When they say all these flaws and faults in medicine, I'm like 100%. But when it's what I've realized, having spoken to someone who's going to be who's done a podcast again, it won't be out for a couple of months because I'm so behind. He goes, it's not just he doesn't believe in viruses. He doesn't believe in contagion. He doesn't believe that bacteria cause infection and parasites are an issue. It's like, no, these things only happen because the body has got a fault or a flaw or is deficient in something. And that's why these bacteria are present. They're present because they're doing their job and the environment is wrong. I'm like, whoa. I don't know if I can buy that. You know, bacteria do cause infection. The wrong bacteria in the wrong place can cause a problem. It upsets the balance. And I'm just not ready to say there's no viruses. Something is causing infection. I've been there when something goes around the school. My kids got whooping cough, all one after each other. That was a bacterial infection. I've seen colds and flus and whatever. I'm just saying, I just can't rule out contagion. And yes, maybe the studies are flawed. You know, it's just I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. I'm sorry. And I don't think I ever will be.
No, I don't think you should. Number one, a lot of this is playing with word definitions, right? So what is the definition of a virus? If it's a sequence of nucleic acids, well, are we going to deny that DNA exists, that RNA exists, that proteins exist? Where are we disagreeing with the whole tenets of biology, right?
Right.
Like, was the human genome really sequenced? Because if you're saying whole genome sequencing is not valid, right? Now, I understand the concerns. Illumina is the one that does it, and it's the same people that are doing this whole thing. But I think it does, right? When you have Kevin McKernan, who's mapped the whole, was involved in MIT in mapping the whole genome, that's bringing these attentions to our issues because the FDA refuses to do it. They didn't test a single vial, right? They didn't go look. They didn't confirm anything. They didn't do any safety. But my point is, they're playing with word definitions. They're absolutely trying to make synthetic viruses. And if you say there's no viruses, you're giving a blank check to the Department of Defense, Fort Detrick, all these people to do whatever they want. Sure, go take Ebola, go try and mix it with leukemia, go try and do whatever you want because viruses don't exist. Blank slate. Oh, be careful. Like I was in the military and we have a special forces, CJIRU. This is exactly what they do. We respond to nerve agents, to toxins, contagion. Like what about shedding? Is that
anthrax?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, sorry.
So this is where it's like, well, if what they say is true, then Fauci's not guilty of anything, right? All those insider emails about gain of function and the moratorium. I do agree that a lot of government is theater. It's all just projection. It's just acting. It's trying to control your sense of perception, and they need you terrified. My answer is don't be terrified no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. Like even if you're facing legitimate terrorism and you have to respond to it, there's no benefit in being so paralyzed with fear you can't think. Always rely on critical thinking, right? Especially have some time. Like I can forgive the people that were overwhelmed in the first couple of weeks or months. It was when they didn't respect our right to refuse, right? That they believed there was no evidence to stop transmission. They just believed it out of thin air, right? So yeah, contagion's a thing. Is shedding a thing then? And is synthetic? Do you accept the definition of a synthetic virus? Because or virus-like particles, they can absolutely make them. You can buy them. You can buy spike protein manufactured. You can. They just share. It's openly admitted. They just share the recipe. They just share that genetic sequence, and then they make it. Moderna went up on stage and said, "We designed the vaccine in an hour."
Yeah. No, I saw that. I agree.
It's like, yeah, they're literally just taking the GATC sequences and, that's the recipe? Okay. Like, make one or two little...
Only problem I have with the no virus people is how militant they can get. Like, if you don't believe with us, then you're part of the problem. You're this, you're that. And I just feel like it's almost like a cult.
Right.
It's like a cult. It's like
100%.
you've got
Right.
every reason to be angry at the evil bastards. And I'm not saying every one of them is a bad actor. I think a lot of people are just so fed up with mainstream medicine, so disillusioned. They want to just say, yeah, see, it's all a lie. It's all hoax. And anyone who falls for it is an idiot. You're all idiots. You're all controlled opposition. And it's like, just calm down, everybody. Just calm down.
But how do you break up a resistance faction, right? Like if you're the government narrative and the conspiracy theorists are making a claim and it's gathering support, how do you break it up?
Yeah.
You have to divide and conquer it. You have to flood the zone with completely undigestible topics that no one's going to go. So more and more doctors are coming around to this conclusion, right? Like more and more are speaking out, more and more are stop taking them. They're not cheerleading anymore, right?
Yeah.
If we start saying there's no viruses, you're going to lose 99% of those people, right? It's like, well, no, you're just not going to get, the public's not going to buy into it. It's inconsistent, right? Then what was polio? Well, I'll speak to that because it has so many intricacies. You can't spend 10 minutes on this and figure it out. So was polio a virus or was polio DTT poisoning or arsenic or lead or something else that would cause anterior motor horn? So this is all how good of a diagnosis we can make. And what are you basing that off? Are you calling it polio because they were paralyzed for 24 hours? Or did you actually did you do whole genome sequencing in the 1950s to prove it was polio? No, you didn't. You just said they were paralyzed and called it polio. So this is how well can you prove what you're saying in medicine?
Yeah.
I think we're getting to like, where did diagnosis come from? It is because we say it is kind of where a lot of this comes from. And that's where they're right. Like, oh, there's a picture on an electron microscope. You can't just say that's what caused the illness. Look, there it is. I get it. But to say like the DOD can make whatever they want with impunity, not having it. That's line in the sand. And like you said, if they're using the same strategy, well, if you won't say this, then you're not like you're using all the same tactics as them. Meryl Nass has a great couple write-ups on this and why you shouldn't dismiss it, at least as a differential diagnosis, right? But medicine embarrasses itself. You called it severe acute respiratory syndrome. So if you don't have severe acute respiratory symptoms, it's not SARS. Like this should be obvious, right? Like if it's just a headache, if that's your only symptom, or if it's just joint pain, a million other things can cause all of these symptoms. How are you proving it, right? So there's whole guidelines for this. Like there's guidelines for the pathologists when they're doing autopsies, what to look for to say if it's, so for example, like is there nuclear capsid to suggest it's coming from the virus versus to try and rule out that it's not actual infection. But it's a moot point because the government made both. It's irrelevant.
Listen, why'd you make so much sense?
Spent too much time doing this. I look for inconsistencies and then I look for overlap. And I'm like, what makes just critically thinking? Spend probably too much time doing this.
No, I love it. I love how calm, measured, logical, reasonable you are. Dude, oh, fuck, I love you. You're just such a good guy. Like, really, really do. You're on the money. Listen, final question, and then I need to go and pee. But listen, you're on your deathbed, surrounded by your loved ones, and you're in your hundreds. Before you pass on and meet your maker, what words of wisdom, advice are you going to pass on to them?
Change the world. Do something that matters. We're all going to die. Do something that matters.
Love it. Well, you're doing something that matters. God bless you. Seriously.
And you as well. You've had some absolute superstars on here. You've motivated me as well, and appreciate your sacrifice. This is all going to have an impact in the field, and it's going to be a very memorable time. And these things make a huge impact on the collective psyche. So, kudos for you for being the 0.000003% that are willing to prove that it's not all just cheap talk. Sometimes you have to walk the walk. So, kudos to you.
Thanks, and I can tell you right now, seriously, you're one of those superstars. You're epic. This was epic. Brilliant. One day I'll have you back. Seriously, thank you so much.
Very enjoyable. Thanks for having this experience with me. Thanks for sharing.
I, Ahmed Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts, and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations, and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only. Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence, and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.